Gigi, can you hear me okay? Okay.
Hello, there you are. How are you?
Hey, great. How are you?
Good.
Thanks so much for joining me. I know you've been Zooming literally and figuratively the last 2 weeks
I've
or
been zoomed
so.
out.
So I am so excited you're here. But see, that takes mental skill. That takes mental toughness to do what you're doing right now.
No, it's pretty easy actually. You sit here and you talk. How hard could it be, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, first of all, to the audience that's watching, I'm thrilled to be here with Gigi Fernandez, 17-time Grand Slam champion on the Tennis WTA Tour, 2 Olympic gold medals, former world #1 in doubles. I'm just thrilled to have her here. And I'm Angelo Rossetti, author of Tennacity, the tenacious mindset on and off the court. And Gigi certainly is tenacious, that's for sure. It's the perfect word for her, on and off the court. So before I get into the questions that I have and that some people ask me in advance, I have to ask you about one of your latest emails that the subject line made me have to ask this, but about the fact that you mooned an opponent, and I had to ask, but tell us how that
Yeah, subject line. That's like I didn't. Okay, so first of all, I didn't pick the subject line. I have a guy I work with, and that was like a brilliant subject line because it had the highest open rate of any email that I've ever sent. And I didn't truly moon in the moon sense of the word, because back then, if you recall, in the '90s, we all wore tennis bloomers or tennis panties that were like very colorful, and so basically, I just flipped over and lifted my skirt.
Yes.
So I guess you could call that a moon, but all she got to see were my tennis panties. I didn't really drop my pants.
But that's a moon. That counts, and that's
I had a bad. If you saw my career when I was playing, you know that I had a pretty bad temper. I was a mental wreck. I used to break 100 rackets a year. I used to pay my fines to the WTA ahead of time. All stuff I'm not proud of, but I was just not born with mental toughness. It's funny. I interviewed Martina Navratilova and Tracy Austin, hoping to talk to them about some mental toughness, and the fact is that neither of them really worked on mental toughness or mental preparation or being mentally tough because they were born with that skill. So they really didn't have to go through this process or this journey that I went through to try to figure it out. And it was a long one, which started in '88 when I was about to quit and won my first Grand Slam with some mental help from Dr. Jim Lair. So I'm a huge believer in sports psychology and psychology of any kind, and trying to understand yourself better and improve yourself. So it's been a long road.
That's great. And that's impressive that you weren't born with it, because yes, I remember watching you compete on the tour. I remember you playing the Virginia Slims at Madison Square Garden. I had front row there, and I just remember just how driven you were, and could have fooled me that you weren't born mentally tough or mentally strong. And so that leads in perfectly into my first question for everyone, for you, but for everyone is, what do you think the most important mental skill or trait is for tennis or for sports?
I think it's the ability to relax under pressure. I think most people get pretty tense. When you get tense, physically your muscles get tight. You're physically, if you feel your muscles, they're just tight, and you cannot have a fluid stroke or accurate stroke when there's muscle tension. So the skill of relaxation, which happens through either meditation or diaphragmatic breathing or visualization, sometimes helps, but really starts a little bit before that, because it starts with your preparation. If you're really well prepared for your matches and you've done everything you can to get ready for this match, when you show up on the court, you're going to be a little bit more relaxed than if you kind of fly by the seat of your pants and just kind of show up on the court and try to hope that you play well that day. So it's really a combination of a lot of things.
That is key, because I know a lot of people, especially tennis players, put a lot of pressure on themselves. If it's singles, it feels like everything is on you. If it's doubles, I've heard so many people say they don't want to disappoint their doubles partner. because they want to be asked back to play the next tournament. So
Right.
relaxing under pressure, knowing how to do that is so key. Is there any specific thing for you, a go-to phrase or anything that gets you to relax?
So I did a couple of things that I mentioned, two of them already, which were, one was meditating and one was diaphragmatic breathing. When you breathe from your diaphragm, you use your whole lungs. You know, when we are breathing normally, of course, we don't have to think about breathing. We just breathe naturally. But when when we breathe normally, we're using a third of our lungs. So we're not really getting all the oxygen in. When you breathe through your diaphragm, which what you do is you take a really long, deep breath, maybe 10 or 15 count breath in. And if you've never done this, the first time you do this, you'll probably get to about 3 or 4 count. So you slowly increase your ability to continue to fill your lungs. And that just puts all this oxygen into your body, which then goes into your muscles, which helps the lactic buildup and relaxation. And so that's number one. Number two, meditation before matches. I sometimes would meditate in the changeovers if I was super tight. And then the third thing that I used to do is I used to transport myself to another place, and what I call find your happy place. My happy place was my dad's boat. We're coming back we live in Puerto Rico, coming back from the islands on the long weekends, and a Sunday night, and the sun setting over the horizon. I could see the mountains and the sun. And it was just a beautiful setting, and I could feel the wind in my face. And I could close my eyes and think I'm in that place, and I immediately feel relaxed. So if you just close your eyes when you're super stressed out and think of whatever place makes you happy, you start to have those feelings. And it's really interesting, the brain doesn't know the difference between perception and reality. So if you have nodes in your brain that are measuring your brain waves, and you're sitting in that specific place and there's brain activity, and you close your eye and you're somewhere else, now you're in a bathroom somewhere, and you close your eyes and you think of that place, the brainwave activity is the same. So really your brain doesn't know the difference. So you trick your brain into thinking you're somewhere else, and you start to feel relaxed. And then the last thing I have to say probably about this is that it's all about your self-talk, what you tell yourself. Like if you're positive, encouraging, nice to yourself, kind, you're more likely to play better than if you are into self-deprecation and you are mean to yourself and you say nasty things, which I know a lot of people do. So just try to be positive. It's a really hard sport. One of the greatest things that anybody ever told me when I was trying to be good at golf sometime, and I had my same temperament in golf that I did in tennis, and I was playing with a pro golfer, and she said to me, and I got really mad after a shot, and I think I threw a club or something, and which you don't do in golf. Yeah. And she looked at me and she goes, "You're not good enough to be mad." So it's like, so I say that to recreational players. Sometimes they get so mad. It's like, you're not that good. Really, you shouldn't be getting that mad. It's just a game, right? So just like try to chill and keep telling yourself this is just a game. Like life and death is not at stake.
I love that. That is hilarious. And I know with, Roger Federer, he had a temper, up until he had that epiphany that it was holding him back. He was embarrassing his family and his coaches. And then he just decided, I'm going to do a mental shift, a mind shift, and not get so angry. And then once he decided that, he ended up beating Sampras and winning Wimbledon for the first time. So for you, was it an epiphany where you had that mindset shift with your temper and you were able to control it? Or was that like after you won a couple of Grand Slams, then it kicked in?
So for me, it was really a progression. And I cannot say that I was good all the time. Even in the end of my career, I still would have good days and bad days. But I did learn to manage my emotions and channel them in a positive way. And it started in '88 when I've been playing for 4 years and I was going to quit. And my agent, he said, before you quit, why don't you go meet Dr. Jim Lair? And I said, sure, I'll give it a try. So he taught me 2 things. He taught me what to do between points, which is, the average time that a tennis player is playing a match and not actually playing a point is between 80 and 85%. So it's a lot of time that you're just in your thoughts. So he taught me sequentially what to do with that time, which is really valuable. And then the other thing he had me do is he had me act. He's like, you know how to act? I'm like, well, I don't know how to act, but what do you want me to do? And he said, I just want you to pretend like you're having fun. I want you to go out there and try to fool the whole crowd into thinking that you're having a good time. And I guess what? I acted my way to my first Grand Slam. Just hated tennis. I was going to quit. And he's like, just do this. And doing that, I kept winning and winning and winning. And sure enough, we ended up winning the US Open. So, so then I thought, wow, if I can really trick my mind into thinking that I'm having fun when I'm miserable and I can win a Grand Slam, then I got to figure this thing out. So, so then a lot of stuff happened after that, but yeah, it was, I wasn't always perfect, but I had the tricks to get out of when I was in a funk.
I love that. And that reminds me of Agassi, where he hated tennis, in his book Open, he shared that, how he hated it, but then he found the love for it in a roundabout sort of way. And with you, I love the fact that you were acting. Your brain doesn't necessarily distinguish between what's acting and what's real, like you said before, and you went with it. I love that. Of your 17 Grand Slam titles, which, by the way, I just want to underscore for those viewers that are watching, that is not easy to do. It's not even easy to win one. To win 17, I think, is just exceptional. And which one, is there any one that stood out as this one took the most tenacity or grit? And if so, why?
Tenacity or grit?
Like your first one because it was your first one, or your last one because you know that you might retire, or somewhere where you might have had an injury.
I would say the '97 French Open, which was my last of 6 Grand Slams. And the reason for it is, like, at the end of '96, Natasha and I had stopped playing together, and we started out the year '97 with different partners. And halfway through around April, during the right after the Miami Open tournament, which used to be called the Lipton.
Yep.
We decided to get back together, but it was like me begging her, because she wanted to play with, she at the time was wanting to play with someone else who was injured. So I was like, okay, let's just finish the year. And, and I was supposed to be playing with Arantxa for that year. And Arantxa and I didn't play well together. We were both outside players, so somebody had to be on the deuce, and neither one of us. We were great on the deuce, but not as great as the other people were on the deuce, right?
Yeah.
So I found out at that Miami Open tournament that Arantxa had agreed to play with Hingis for the rest of the year, and that she was going to kind of end our partnership in a couple of days when I found out. So then I went and found Natasha, and I was like, all right, Natasha, you got to come back. You got to just finish out the year with me, and I'll retire at the end of the year. And she was like, fine, I'll do it. So then when we went to the French Open, and we made seven French Open finals in a row. So this is our 7th. And I actually made eight, I think it was 8 in a row, because one was with Diana. But we were playing in this one, and in the semifinals, of course, we had to play Arantxa and then Martina. And I really wanted to win that match. And we won that one 12-10, 12-10 in the third. And then we ended up winning. So it was important, because I was trying to convince Natasha that we were still a good team and that we should still be playing together. And then we went and won we won Wimbledon a couple of weeks later, and then we made the finals of the US Open. But in the end, she wanted to go play with Lindsay. So so it was fine. I mean, I was ready to retire. I was 30, I was just turned 34, which at the time was ancient. And I was a little bit burnt out. I had been 15 years traveling for 42 weeks out of the year, so I was really burnt out, and I didn't want to start the year with a new partner. But that particular one was important, because it proved to me and to us that we were still the best team in the world.
I love that story, and that is just, talk about resilience, talk about having to have confidence for yourself, but also to exude that with your partner is, hey, we could do this. You have to convince
especially when she doesn't want to play with you, right?
yeah, exactly.
Playing against 3 people.
Yeah, but I think you're very passionate, and then in that regard, very persuasive. So I could see how you could, get people to really believe that. That's awesome. What has been your biggest mental skill challenge? I know you touched on it earlier as far as controlling that temper or managing it. Do you think that is the biggest mental skill challenge for you?
I mean, of course, now I don't have any, because I overcame them, right?
Exactly. Or what was?
At the time, I think it was really accepting that tennis is not a game of perfect. Like, I am a perfectionist, and when you're a perfectionist,
Yeah.
Tennis is a really hard sport for you. If you are a perfectionist listening, tennis is a really hard sport because there is no perfect in tennis. Even when you play a great match, I mean, I think in a career of, I don't know how many matches I played, but probably 700-800 matches between singles and doubles. I would say there was maybe 3 matches where I walked off a court and I thought, wow, I played great today. Everything was on, you know, and that's like 3 out of 800 matches, you know. So when you're a perfectionist, that's hard to handle because
Yeah.
you don't, you know, and then there's also the immaturity, right? I mean, professional athletes are very young and we're very, even though some are more mature than their age, we're still fairly immature when you're in your 20s. So, you know, if I had the perspective now if I had the perspective then that I have now, I probably would be a better player or would handle my emotions better. But of course, I'm too old now to be to be a professional athlete. So it's funny how you know, it's just hard. It's hard to have it all together at just at such a young age.
And I love that. I love the fact that have been coaching for at least 10 years, other athletes, I think. So then you could still kind of be in the game, but be in it more, you know, indirectly, which I think is exciting and has its own challenges as well. Over the years, did you have a setback mentally, injury or anything like that, or changing partners, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, everybody has setbacks. You know, it's very lucky not to be injured, except for I had shin splints for a 6-week period in my career. I had to, I couldn't play for 6 weeks, which is the longest I was ever without. All I could do was swim. So
Wow.
I fortunately lived in a place that had a swimming pool, and I used to swim 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes in the afternoon, and that's really all I could do. So I developed a love for swimming, which is great. But you know, I was told by a lot of partners earlier in my career they didn't want to play with me anymore. Zena Garrison was one of them. You know, Yana Novotna was another. When you think you're a good team and your partner says to you, "I don't want to play with you anymore," that's hard. That's hard to accept, and particularly the one Yana, because we had won the French and made the finals of Wimbledon, and then right after the Wimbledon final is when she told me she didn't want to play with me anymore. So. You know, you can get angry about why somebody doesn't want to play with you anymore, or you could look internally at yourself and figure out what is it that you're doing that is causing people not to want to play with you. I know for Sina, it was, you know, my emotions were, I was like this with my emotions, right? So I had to play with somebody who was like this and would allow me to do this. But if I play with somebody who was like this, that was trouble, because if we were both here at the same time, then the team was no good, right? So you have to find the right balance. But definitely, you know, people only see the success, you know, when they watch pros on TV. Anytime you're watching a pro on TV, they have achieved, they're already successful, but no one really sees the struggles coming up. But there's for sure at least it's the same amount of struggles as there is successes in most people's careers.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's great for club players out there watching this, that, you know, that happens all the time. And the fact that, hey, it happens to everyone, even the greats.
And you know, it's really hard to be, to sort of, first of all, know yourself on the tennis court. So, you know, because it's very hard for you to self-judge, you know, like a lot of times, I don't know how your partners and your teammates perceive you, Angelo, might be different than you perceive yourself. You know, I mean, not you, and I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm talking about in humanity, in generally speaking, right? So there's a way. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because I have this. One of my clients came to me with this idea to come up with a way for people to rate you, or assess you. So if you could send a survey to 10 of your friends to assess you or help you understand yourself better on the court, would you be receptive to that? And at first I was like, I don't know if I want people telling me what they think of me, but if it's anonymous and I can learn about it and I can you know, and I can get some positive feedback, I think generally people want to be better. People want to know what they're doing wrong, and they want to know how to get better. But it starts with knowing yourself, and I think in generally people don't know themselves that well. It's hard when you're competing. So
Yeah, no, that's true. My twin probably knows me better than anybody, but I would say I was tougher on him than anybody. So I played differently when he was my partner than with other people. So yeah, but you can learn a lot from other people, and I like the fact that it's anonymous because then it's like, hey, you're not taking it personally. It's going to help you.
Right. Yeah. So I'm gonna send that to you when it's ready. We're
Yeah.
beta
Oh,
testing
yeah.
it
I would
now.
love to know
So
that. If we were playing together, I would let you have the middle balls. I would let you coach. That's yeah, that's just a fact. So as far as confidence, I've seen you speak at Tennis Congress a couple of times and watched you compete, coach, everything, the gamut. And every interaction I've ever, been with you, you exude this confidence. And for you, were you born with that? Was that something you also worked on? And how important is confidence to athletes and tennis players, would you say?
I think that success breeds confidence. And I was a very successful junior in Puerto Rico, big fish in a small pond. So I was always, number one in my age group and the two above. So from my, very early years when I was, 9 and 10 years old, I was already like this superstar in Puerto Rico. I was in the newspapers, and at 12, I played in a WTA tournament that went through Puerto Rico, and I won nationals at 12 in the U.S. and I won the Puerto Rico national championship in the adult division. So I think when you're that successful, you become confident about your ability because you can back it up, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not confident about everything, but but I am very confident around tennis because I have the background to back it up. But yes, absolutely. Even if you're not successful, you can kind of talk yourself into it. If you're feeling down on the DOMs or if you're negative with yourself, you're probably not going to play good tennis. But it's sort of like a little bit of a snowball effect too. Like once you start confidence or start playing confident, and then it starts to grow and it starts to snowball, right? And over time you have like all this confidence, but it starts with a tiny little thought of I'm good at this and I'm going to win my match today and I'm going to be positive for a whole match and I'm going to have fun out there and I'm going to win, and starts with just one simple thought.
Yep. And it's like the chicken or the egg. You need confidence to win, but if you haven't won yet, you got to kind of fake it till you make it or act it. And then the reality.
So here's my inspiring confidence story. The year that they made the 1994 Wimbledon singles semifinal,
Wow.
I had lost 9 first rounds in a row. I got to Wimbledon ranked 99th in the world. I was probably the last person to get in. And I made it to the semifinals and had my best tournament ever. And I just lost nine first rounds, which is the whole year. I hadn't won a match all year, and I got to Wimbledon, made it to semis. So yeah, so it just can turn on a dime. You never know. The next match you play could be the one that turns it around, and you just have to stay positive.
Did you serve in volley? Did you serve
the
in
whole time?
The whole time?
Yeah,
first
of course.
And second? Yeah.
On grass, absolutely. Yeah. First and second service. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. First and second. Yep.
Yeah. You could still do that. You could still do that in the 90s. Starting in the 2000s, you stopped being able to do that because the returns were just too hard, and people started hitting too much spin on the ball. So every time, the difference in my era, people are still hitting the ball hard, like Celis, Graf, Capriati, Davenport, they hit the ball really hard. But it was hard and flattish, flat. Now it's hard with spin. So when I was serving and volleying, I would hit a lot of first volleys, waist to knee level. And I could manage that. But now you could be 3 feet from the net and you're still hitting your volleys from your shoe tops. So anytime you're volleying from the low level of the net, you're dead because you have to hit it up. When you hit it up to the baseliner, and they're just gonna put it away and you have no chance. So I don't know if we'll ever see serve and volley tennis like we had in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, that is so true. Especially with the technology, the rackets, the strings.
Right.
Yeah, so true. What can junior and adult players learn from you in regards to the mental game? And then I know you have a course I want to talk about in a little bit that you just launched, which is great. But what mainly can they learn from you? Like 1 or 2 things would you say if you were to tell junior and adults about the mental game? What would you say?
One of the things that I think recreational players do the worst is the pre-match preparation. The roadmap to mental dominance, which you just referenced, there's 7 I call them 7 pillars of mental dominance. So you have to have 7 things. You have to really understand the brain, what happens to you under pressure, and how to counter what's happening to you under pressure. You have to have goals, and you have to set your goals in a certain way that help you succeed. You have to have pre-match preparation that gets you ready for your matches, not just show up and play. You have to have a certain match mentality, which depends on your opponent and the score. You know, depending on if you're up or down, or if it's a big point or not, how much risk you take varies. Then you have to have a sequence, something to do in between points, which I call the crave sequence, or the 25 seconds between points. You have to have trigger words when you hit the ball, and if you don't know what those are, then you'll never play good tennis. And then finally, you have to have a mental toolkit, something you can draw on when things go bad, that you can say, okay, this time I need to do this time I need to do that time I need to do that. And that's kind of what I share in the roadmap. But I think the pre-match preparation is the one that gets butchered the most. Like, I think recreational players and junior players, also, they don't prepare. They just show up. They might hit for 10, 15 minutes, but they have not really thought about the match, visualized it. They don't have a set routine the night before. They don't eat the same thing the day before. They don't eat the same thing the morning of. They don't have the same exact pre-match preparation every time. And that's one thing that pros are really good at. You know, we're very structured about our pre-match preparation, because you always want to control the controllables. And then this is one thing you can control. So what I tell players is, if you ever play a match, now if you ever remember playing a great match, unfortunately it's already passed, so you can't do this. But the next time you go play and you come off the court and you're like, wow, I played really well today. Everything felt great. I was relaxed. Go back and track what you did the last 24 hours. So what time did you go to sleep? What did you eat? How many hours sleep did you get? What did you have for lunch the day before? What did you have for breakfast that day? What's your sequence? How did you drive to where you were going? Did you stop to get gas on the way, which is a big no. Like, don't ever go to your matches and stop to get gas. So many things can happen when you stop. Like, what were you thinking in the car? What was the morning up? Like, what was the pre-match when you got to the course? Did you warm up? Did you not warm up? How long did you warm up for? And then replicate it. Do the exact same thing again the next time. As many of the same steps as possible, do them again. And that's how over time you become a little bit of a machine, and you have to be kind of a little bit of a machine to go out and play and be ready to play every time you go out. It doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah, oh, I love that. I love that. One question we had for you was, do you have one particular point in your career, not necessarily a match, but one particular point in your career that really stuck out? Like, that was the best point I've ever played, or I've seen some videos of really cool exchanges and, with you doing reflex volleys at Wimbledon. Is there one particular point this was a really important point, or a really amazing point, or something that stuck out in your career?
Well, when you started saying that, the point that sticks out to me the most was not as one that I lost. It was not that one that I won. Because I was in the 94 singles semifinal, I was up 5-2, and I served for the set at 5-3, and I had to get a set point. I serve volleyed, and I had a high forehand volley. It was a bit of a floater, not really. It was, I was probably 2 feet behind the service line, and I was going to hit it cross court into the open court, which was Martina was running. And I saw her out of the corner of my eye. I saw that she had taken off to start running to the due side. So I changed my mind to hit it down the line, and I just clipped the tape. I mean, it just hit the top of the tape. I hit it good. I just missed it. And if I had won that set, I probably would have won the match, because Martina was getting tired. And in fact, later in life, she told me that a couple of years later, she's like, if I had not won that game, I was done. She was cooked. She was old. It's her last year that she played singles. She was older, and she was having fitness problems. So I could have made the finals at Wimbledon to play Conchita Martinez. So that would have been, I know. So maybe I would have been a Wimbledon singles champion. So that's the one that stands out. Of the points that I won, there's a couple of points with Natasha that have been shown on the internet. A couple of doubles points where, back and forth reflexes. I remember hitting a backhand down the line on set point, the U.S. Open final in 96, I believe, or 95. Against Renee Stubbs and Brenda Schultz to win the first set, 7-5. So backhand down the line winner. But mostly the one that I wish I had.
Yeah. Oh man.
I know.
And was it like really close? Like, was it like just like half an inch or not even, would you say, on that
No,
one?
it just clipped the tape. I mean,
Uh,
it could have dribbled over,
yeah.
you know, and the thing is, like, I had a really slow start in that match. I started 4-love down. I was obviously nervous. And then I brought it back. So I was down 5-1, but then I got it to 5-4. So I got into it, lost first at 6-4. And then I was off to the races, 3-1, 4-1, 5-2, serving for it at 5-3. And then at 6-5, then we played a long tiebreaker. I had another set point in the tiebreaker, and she hit a return winner. And then on match point, we were having a volley exchange, and I had a high forehand volley, and I swore to this day that ball was going out, and I let it go and it landed in. So those are my two regrets. So I remember all the regrets.
Yeah.
But of course I remember all the good title wins. I just don't have a specific point other than the ones that I mentioned.
No, those are awesome. I know that I just bought your course. I'm excited to dive in through it. I'm always,
thank you.
You know, you're welcome. I love just learning more and more about the mental game. I think that's my biggest strength. At the same time, I always want to be a better teacher, a better coach. And so I can't wait to get through it. And I just want to tell the audience and everyone who's watching, today's Friday. Tomorrow by midnight, I believe, or 11:59, I think is the deadline. And that was really generous of you. I know you dropped the price point because of everything that's going on. It's only $97. I think it's a big value. I think the really cool thing in particular for doubles players is you're throwing in a couple of bonuses like the Gigi method, which is your doubles methodology, which, you know, I can't think of another person, 17 Grand Slams in doubles. It's like, I think she knows a thing or two about mental skills.
Well, thank you. But let me just say, like, even that, it's very funny because I just talked to Todd Martin a couple of days ago, and Todd Martin, of course, is former top 10 American player who made the finals of Wimbledon one year, and he is now the CEO of the International Tennis Hall of Fame. Yep. And we were talking about something. He said, he said to me, I have been on the court with, I can't tell you how many ex-pros, and most of them have no clue how to teach. They don't know anything. But I was on the court with you, and I could not believe how much I learned. And I was like, Todd, I need that as a testimonial, because what I have done is, because I have now coaching recreational players, I had to, and I've been doing it since 2012, I kind of had to break down the game and go back to the basics. So like really the basics of the beginning of when I first started learning how to play doubles. And of course, bringing it down to the level of play is can be hard for pros. So pros have the reputation of being the worst teachers around, and for some of them, this is true. Some people have no idea how they hit the ball well. They don't know how. But I've always been very analytical. One of my early pros coaches was Don Usher, who was the head women's coach at Harvard University. And you don't get hired to be at Harvard unless you're really smart. Yeah. But he really taught me a lot about the physics of tennis and the geometry of tennis and the angles of the court and the angle of the racket and impact and the velocity of the ball and the revolution, the spins and the revolution of the spin. And it was very analytical about what happens with the stroke. I also did some work with Vic Braden very early on when he was the first one to put you on a machine that was like just nodules, so then when you would hit your shot and then you would then go see the stick figure of yourself hitting the shot. Back, this is in the late 80s, early 90s, before there was the video analysis tools that we have now. It was all like stick oriented. So I've always been really into the science of the sport. So I think that's why I've been able to translate that into coaching recreational players and in a way that people really understand what I'm trying to say, and not coaching to pros, but coaching to the actual level.
Yeah, I love that. My high school, senior high school physics exam was the physics of tennis. That was my paper. I did a big paper.
Oh wow, cool! That's great.
Oh yeah, I know. So what you believe in is right up my alley. I love that stuff. Great. I absolutely love being analytical prior to the match to come up with your strategy and tactics. But then once you're in the match, you just kind of let it happen and you go with the flow. There's a really good book I read by Josh Waitzkin called The Art of Learning, and you would probably love it. But you know, you mentioned earlier about understanding when you're in the flow or the zone. What did you eat? How many hours of sleep? That sort of thing. And he talks a little bit about that, about, you know, identifying that and then trying to do that again so that you get yourself in the flow, you know, kind of on cue. It's very difficult to do, but I think once you're in the flow, don't question it, just let it happen. And when you're not in the flow, you probably know. So what can you do to trigger yourself? And you mentioned trigger words from you know, your course. And I love the fact that with Dr. Lair that he coached you, because I'm a big fan of Dr. Lair's. I've read a lot of his works, and that is, I think, wonderful also that, you know, I always say the best teachers have a mentor or have been taught, you know, not just like you said, not just, okay, they competed and they were great, or they were born with amazing hands and okay, stand right on top of the net kind of thing, you know. Some people stand right on top of the net, they don't have that kind of reflex. So what are you going to do with what you have, you know?
Right, exactly. No, and you know, you mentioned mentors, which you know, no one really gets to any high level without help or mentors or coaches or a team. So I definitely had a lot of help along the way from a lot of great coaches. And you know, and the players now obviously have lots of people, lots of mentors, lots of people around them, lots of coaches, trainers, physios, massage therapists, you know, teams, agents, et cetera, et cetera. So, so yeah, definitely mentorship is something that I value a lot, and I think is critical to success.
That's awesome. I think that that's great. And, you know, I think that to be coachable and also the desire to want to coach and help people, I think are two great skills for champions and for coaches. So if they go to Doubles TV, is that where they can get your course? And can you tell us?
For this one, go to roadmaptomentaldominance.com.
Okay.
It's called the Roadmap to Mental Dominance. You can also go to GigiFernandez Tennis, which is my website, and there's a link there. If you guys are new to me or I would start there, because if you join my list, then you get a free tip once a month. I send out on the first of the month. I send out a free tip, and then if you sign up for the course, and you'll get not only get all that, but I had this interview with Martina last Thursday, and there's so much great information there that I turned that video and that interview into mini lessons, and they're also coming with the roadmap. So so check it out. Like Angelo said, it's a huge discount from the last year. It's like, I think the combined value of the products it's like over $500, and we're selling it for $97. So thank you, Angelo, for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. Maybe someday we'll play doubles together, and I'll be on my best behavior.
All right.
But thank you, Gigi, so much for your time. Everybody who's listening, this is Angelo Rossetti, author of Tennacity, Tenacious Mindset on and off the court, signing off. But definitely pop a note to me of other guests or concepts you want me to cover. And make sure to find Gigi's mental toughness course online, the Roadmap to Mental Dominance, and it's awesome. And it expires tomorrow, so make sure to check that out as well. Gigi, thanks again so much.
Thank you.
I look forward to talking to you soon.
All right, thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.